Hey there folks, tonight we're diving into the wild world of GDP or gross domestic product. Don't worry, it's not as boring as it sounds. But first subscribe, hit the bell for all notifications and thumbs up. Think of GDP as a giant scoreboard for a country's economy. It tells us how much stuff that country is producing and selling. A high GDP usually means good times or rolling jobs are plentiful, businesses are booming, and people are spending money like they're printing it themselves. A low GDP, on the other hand, is like a punch to the gut of the economy. It means businesses are struggling, people are losing their jobs, and everyone's tightening their belts. Now let's hop into a time machine and travel back to the 1930s. Buckle up because it's going to be a bumpy ride. The 1930s, the Great Depression. It was a time when the American dream turned into a nightmare. The stock market crashed, banks failed, and businesses shut down faster than a politician's promise. Millions of people lost their jobs, their homes, and their hope. And the GDP? It plummeted like a lead balloon, shrinking by a whopping 25% in just 4 years. This wasn't just a dip in the economic road, it was a full-blown economic crater. But just when things couldn't get any worse, World War II arrived, and the US economy was thrown for another loop. The early 1940s saw the US fully engaged in World War II. Factories that once produced cars and toasters were now churning out tanks and planes. Unemployment plummeted as Americans joined the military or took up jobs supporting the war effort. GDP skyrocketed, growing by an average of 17% per year during the war. It was a period of economic mobilization unlike anything seen before or since. But this wartime boom came at a cost. Rationing was in full swing, consumer goods were scarce, and the national debt ballooned. The war may have pulled the US out of the Great Depression, but it also left the economy in a state of flux. Section 4. The Post-War Boom, an era of prosperity and growth. After the war, the United States experienced an unprecedented economic boom. Soldiers returned home, started families, and fueled a demand for housing, cars, and appliances. The government invested heavily in infrastructure, education, and research, further boosting the economy. GDP grew steadily, averaging around 4% per year from the 1950s through the early 1970s. It was a time of optimism and prosperity when the American dream seemed within reach for many. But as we all know, nothing lasts forever, especially in the unpredictable world of economics. Section 5. Navigating Recessions, Challenges to Steady Growth. While the decades following World War II saw remarkable economic growth, it wasn't all smooth sailing. The United States economy faced its share of challenges, including recessions in the 1970s, the early 1980s, the early 1990s, and the late 2000s. These downturns were often triggered by external shocks, such as oil crises, stock market crashes, or global financial instability. During these periods, GDP contracted, unemployment rose, and businesses struggled. However, the United States economy proved resilient, bouncing back from each recession to reach new heights. Section 6. The road ahead, continued growth and uncertainty. So, where do we go from here? The United States economy has been on a tear lately, with GDP experiencing significant positive growth. But challenges remain, including inflation, supply chain disruptions, and geopolitical uncertainty. The future of the United States economy, like the GDP that measures it, is a story that's still being written. And on that surprisingly optimistic note, we'll be right back with more videos. Thank you for watching.